All right, hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire. Once again, we're back with some further commentary on the People's Choice Top 200. It's the best list of the year, obviously, because it's the top 200 solo games, and that's what we're rocking. All right, so this is the video that is about games 51 through 100. So we're up in the top 100 of the list, and you know, we can talk about the People's Choice cream of the crop next video, but I think there's a lot of really good stuff. And this chunk of the list is so good.
Cream of the crop. All right.
Indeed. All right, so I'm Liz, and then why don't you gentlemen all introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are, even though they already should.
Jeremy Howard, Man versus Meeple.
Paul Grogan, Gaming Rules.
Mike Kelley, One Stop Co-op Shop.
Yes, and we together are the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. No, I'm kidding.
Whoa.
No.
I want to be Pestilence. I call Pestilence.
Wow.
All right, so I just have to start off with the fact that number 100 is Navajo Wars, a chunky little solo war game that climbs 22 spots to crack the top 100 again this year. Wow.
Wow.
I did not expect that.
You were saying earlier how war games are on the way down, but this one has bucked the trend. This one is going up.
Yeah, it had a reprint this year.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes sense then.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. I think I was waiting on my copy this time last year. I'm pretty sure something in there, but yeah, Navajo Wars is a very heavy game, and it is the predecessor of the game I think is better between the two, which is Comancheria. And they are both games about Native American history by Joel Toppin, who is like a missionary who lives with Native Americans in the United States. So very interesting. I'm super happy to see these kind of thinky, tough games holding their own.
I'm a little thrown by Burn Cycle and Raiders of Scythia being in the top 100 at all.
Okay.
Explain.
First of all,
because Raiders of Scythia is dropped.
First of all, Raiders of Scythia is just a cleaner version of Raiders of the North Sea. And it's not like that profound. It's just Raiders of the North Sea was a okay solo game. And then like to have a better version of it is great. But I don't necessarily feel like 100 over some of the Titans that I saw on the previous list. Burn Cycle, although a really good solo game, is not a top 100. It's got to be a recency bias thing here, because I just, once again, although fun and good, like good solo mode, a really good solo mode, doesn't belong amongst the top 100 that represents a solo. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Versus some of the ones that we've had in here. Just it's a really solid game though. I'm just surprised also because of the price of it, but
yeah,
you know, but you know, it ranged true with chip theory type games.
Yeah,
that are going to be, you know, well received because they are really good solo modes. I'm not 100% pushing back against. I think I'm pushing more against the Raiders of Scythia thing, where I'm just like right away I'm like, well, really? Like, but the people have spoken, and it has gone down. So
I should know this, but is the solo mode for Burn Cycle really any different from the multiplayer mode?
No.
I was going to say, because it's a cooperative game that's for 1 to 4 players. There isn't like, oh, and if you're playing solo, you now need to use all of these extra rules. It's like, no, it's the same rules. You're just using one bot and that other little thing that comes with
I was
it.
going to say, even in solo, you still have the helper bot, and it's not that hard to two-hand it either if you want to. So no, Burn Cycle is definitely in that like cooperative, like solo plays exactly the same kind of mode. Yeah.
But it also fits into that category of, sure, you can play it solo. I would never play it solo.
Oh no, I love this
because because it's too much for me. I need somebody there to go, Paul, we forgot to do that movement wrong, or we forgot to roll that die, or we forgot to do this. So I need another person there to make sure, you know, I'm actually doing it right, because it's a bit too much overhead for me.
Just to show you I'm not a hater. I mean, it's right here within grasp.
There you go.
I'm not a hater. I'm not saying I'm a hater.
But you could be. That's permitted on this list.
I could be. You know, I could.
You're allowed. Hate is
but when
hate
coffee
is
roaster, when coffee roaster is below that, I think to myself, what are we talking about?
I mean, I think coffee roaster shouldn't even be in the top 200. I think that's a thing. Like I see games right around Burn Cycle that I think are way better than Burn Cycle and way worse. It's just taste and preferences. A truly great bag builder is Not going to be discussed on this video. Never mind. It's even higher than that. But I'm glad that that's higher than Coffee Roaster, because that's way better than Coffee Roaster in every way.
I 100% agree. All right. So what about games that are kind of old venerables in this part of the list that are hanging on and you're happy to see it? So I personally feel that way about Baseball Highlights 2045. I freaking love Baseball Highlights. I always will love baseball. I'll just carry that torch for a long time. I really love it. Let's see.
Holding strong. Hostage Negotiator.
Yeah.
Holding strong with Final Girl making a charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because of course Final Girl is a superior game, but still, like, you got that's another one. So like we talked about
Hostage Negotiator
last video, like you talk about last video, Mistfall. This would be one to pick up now, because you can get maybe the entire run of that game, plus the crime wave, plus everything for under $100 from somebody, because they want to get rid of it because they got Final Girl.
Right.
And you would have just as much fun, and you would fall in love with the system. And
or you wouldn't, because I think people
or you wouldn't, right?
But most people who don't like one probably won't like the other. Although I think Final Girl has enough extra going on that it can draw you in, even if you don't like that core system.
So it's like that's a win to me. But I just thought like, ooh, that's a very interesting that it's still in there. That's good.
Yeah, we're talking about recency bias.
Yeah.
When I first dipped my toe into solo gaming, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe, Hostage Negotiator was the one that I kept hearing everybody talking about as like the solo game to play.
Yeah. So
it's come before a lot of the other, more recent solo games, obviously. So it is good to see it's still in there in the top 100. Because I've still not managed to try it myself, but I have heard good things.
I do recommend it. I think that Career was an inspired addition to an already fantastic system. I'm a big Hostage Negotiator fan, but some people don't like the theme too. I think Final Girl is ultimately going to be the more palatable one. Right. I do think it runs a little better.
Yeah,
which is maybe a weird thing, because neither one is really a nice happy theme.
No, but like fake horror movie violence is more culturally acceptable than like so. My favorite Hostage Negotiator scenario is still the teacher one, because it makes me feel so uncomfortable. I was gonna say,
it's still the teacher one. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Like I've played that one on my channel because like I'm a teacher and I can't imagine, but also like I would watch that movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of a game that has like Career kind of added a campaign. I see that Imperial Settlers Empires of the North is 93 on here, and I enjoy that solo. I have the Lighthouse, but haven't played it yet, which is the new expansion. That's like a solo campaign. Have you played it, Jeremy?
That's what I'm looking at it right here. So it's on my very recent list to play. So I'm very excited to get that to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I like it a lot. So I wonder if it's going to be like an Arnak situation where it takes a pretty good solo mode and makes it like real good. That'd be awesome if it does.
Now I've heard there's some errors in there, and there's some small things in there that bug it up a little bit. Okay. But because they tried to get it printed by Essen. And I think they just really didn't once over it enough, which is unfortunate, because I don't like rush products. But this probably was a rush job, but also the gameplay is good. That's what I'm thinking. Interesting trend on here. So what do all these games have in common? You ready?
What?
Here we go. Starting at the top, Hallertau. Moving on to, I thought was Agricola was in there.
Glass Road.
And then At the Gates of Lo Yang.
Yeah.
Oh, and Glass Road, right?
And Glass Road.
Yeah, Glass Road's in here too. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Like, isn't that interesting? Like,
especially because I've offloaded all of those.
That's an interesting little trend in there. Like in that 50.
Yeah, it's all like the exact same.
And then maybe more in the next video.
Right, maybe more in the next video. But it's interesting that they're like in that compact 50. And I was like, oh, okay. So then there's still the strongest for the dry Euro.
Yeah. Well, what that tells me too is that they're in this part of the list because everybody has a different favorite, but all those favorites are strong enough to make it into the top 100.
I like this though, because it really says like this designer, like when they recommend a designer, that's what you also are looking for. It's like, which ones are the best ones? And now we're getting to that point where someone has started to divide those. Fister is starting to show up.
Yeah.
Like the T games are starting to show up. So those are the types of things. Or Garfield games is starting to show up. So I mean, this is some strong titles, man. So yeah, I mean, once you get to these parts, it's the strong titles. But one I want to highlight is another one within arm's reach, Renegade.
Which
Yes,
is not going to be called Renegade soon.
Right.
Yeah, but I will always keep the original in my closet.
Yeah,
and
OG
my
is
heart.
staying with me. This game, if you can find it, will be one of your best solo games. Now, 100% themeless to me. 100% themeless. It is literally just a puzzle that you're trying to figure out for each one.
Yeah.
But if you're into that sort of thing, if you can admit that some games are just puzzles, really just card puzzles, then you'll be okay with this game. So yeah, I can't recommend this game enough. It is truly one of the hidden gems on this list. People barely talk about it. People are barely aware of it, is what it really boils down to, I think.
Well, I mean, clearly not
so
too
much that
unaware since it's 54 on the top solo games list.
Well, I'm just saying, for the people who have it, that's another thing. For the people who have it, they will champion it to the day's end.
Yeah.
But you know, if you want to support your community member, Richard Wilkins, you can do that as well. So yeah.
Or I mean, I'm friends with Ricky. I would say Hang Fire, because there's a new version coming out and it's going to be renamed. And it was supposed to be out last year and then was supposed to be out the year before. But it's on its way. It's effectively a second edition of that game.
Is it
with a new name?
Is it Tabletop Tycoon or is he doing it on his own?
I think it's through Tabletop Tycoon.
Okay.
Or one of their companies within that umbrella.
Yeah.
So again,
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's good to hear because it needs new life.
Ricky's a solo gamer, so it's good that when he puts his game designing talents, he does design a very popular solo game. And yeah, it is very good. So looking forward to the new version, whatever it's going to be called. I think he told me once, but I'm not allowed to say. I can't remember.
Root's a very interesting one. Root's a very interesting title to be in the top 100 for a solo only.
Yeah,
I was just talking about how, I think this is one. I'm actually surprised it's as high, but I think Root is such a juggernaut in terms of general popularity. Yeah. I think my love of the solo, because I do love Root solo, I don't see most people loving it as much as I do, because it is a bear, especially when you're fighting against, if you're only playing against one enemy faction, it's not that big of a deal. But doing like 2 or 3 and keeping all of their rules in check and making sure you go through all the little steps of like the flow chart and everything, like it's not easy for me sometimes. And again, I live for that stuff. So I'm sort of surprised that it's as high as it is.
I do think though that it kind of harkens back to what we talked about in the previous video, right? Which is that games that people love that happen to have solo make it on their solo list, even if it's not one of their actual primarily played solo games.
Maybe.
Ooh, you know what else it is though? And this is something else we need to talk about for this list.
The computer game?
Exactly.
App?
When do you rate a game that is an app and you're like, I love the solo in the app? Because Root's app is super easy to play.
Love the app.
Yeah. And if I don't do that personally, I don't rate, like that's a little different to me, like playing it on the app. But if somebody's doing that, then I can totally understand Root being what is it, 79?
But if that was the case, where's Through the Ages? And this is the thing. So Through the Ages has a solo mode on the app, but because there is no actual solo mode for the board game, it's not on this list.
By the way, great app.
Oh, I know. I was playing it at 4:30 this morning when I couldn't sleep. It's the best app ever.
Great app.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I think though that if it says 1 on the box, but you can cheat by playing it on the computer, I don't consider cheating at all. That maybe you feel like you're getting plays in of your board game, even if it's not on the table.
Oh, for sure. I don't mind people rating it that way. I'm just trying to figure out. I think Root would be if it was only the solo that's in the box, and it's not even in the base box, you have to buy the Clockwork expansions. If it was only that, as much as I adore it, I do not think it would be at the place.
It would be this high. Interesting. Yeah.
Is anybody else surprised that Journeys in? Well, no, not. I mean, Space Hulk Death Angel is still hanging out in here.
I know.
I've heard that's really good as well. I've never played it, but I've heard it's really good.
I mean, it's really good if it's really good if you have the right mindset, Paul. Like that, I like it.
Okay.
But you can just die after 45 minutes of playing from a single die roll, so it's not going to be everyone's taste.
That's where I'm at with the same thing with Shadowrun Crossfire. Like you can just not complete the game. Like,
oh my god! Well, Shadowrun Crossfire, I have problems with the entire structure of how slow you level up.
That's a very high number, 57.
Yeah, that's surprising.
That's sometimes just not finishable, and people will not understand that. Okay, so here's 2 biggest losses Okay. Very, very interesting losses. I was like, whoa, that's a big loss. Biggest one is Mansions of Madness. 39 spots.
Should be 390. I don't like the game. I don't like the game at all.
So I don't like the game.
Yeah.
It is one of the highest regardless app driven games.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm glad.
I'm very surprised that it's that low.
I'm glad Journeys in Middle Earth is above it because
for people.
I think Journeys is better. I don't love either of them, but I like Journeys a lot more than Mansions.
So I did a whole podcast with somebody about 4 years ago, and it was 45 minutes long, and it was 45 minutes of me saying why I love Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle Earth and hate Mansions of Madness. So yes, I won't cover the whole topic, but essentially,
go listen to the podcast.
One of them I think is absolutely awful, and the other game is one of my favorite games, and I absolutely love it. And that's not just down to the theme. So
when I came into the hobby, I saved money to get Mansions of Madness,
right?
And because it was like the next game out of my just like, oh, okay, now I'm going to purchase another $100 game. This is crazy. Who would know that I would continue to spend hundreds of dollars on these big campaign boxes? But I just remember trying to app, and I was down for the app stuff early because I was like, oh, you get narration, you get this and that. And that one in particular, I was like, what do we even have this board for at first? And then I was like, oh, I get it, but I'm not feeling the theme. And then I realized like maybe I wasn't a big Cthulhu theme person. I would later find out that Cthulhath May Die is one of the best games ever.
Yes, it is.
But
I just played that yesterday.
But how dare you shake your head at us? Are you kidding me?
I think I just didn't have a good first teach and play. And like, if that happens to me, like I just don't go back. Actually, Tricarion almost got ruined for me that way. Somebody that I love dearly as a friend bought it at a game store, and we were all kind of newish to the hobby. And I'd been gaming, but I hadn't played a lot of heavy years yet. And he was like, "Oh, let's just open it and see how it is here." And I didn't touch it again until like lesson learned badly.
Give that one another chance. Give that one another chance.
Yeah.
Now let me hit y'all with these are all within. They're all within the same 5 block. All right, not quite the same game, but a lot of things to discuss. Oathsworn, first year on the list, 83.
Yeah.
That's surprising as heck. KDM falls to 85, so it's 2 below Oathsworn. And then 2 below KDM is Descent Journeys in the Dark, 2nd edition. And you know what's not on the list at all? I just checked. Descent Legends of the Dark is literally not on the list.
Wow.
Unless I don't know if Kevin combined them. So
yeah, I think he did actually.
Think about the wealth of content for the first 2 that we're talking about here. So King of Death Monster was also the 2nd biggest fall off. So minus 32. If you didn't know, King of Death Monster is still in my top 5 games of all time. It's the most thematic game I've ever played. It is so deep entrenched in its theme, but I also understand it's highly inaccessible game, like as far as upkeep and all that stuff, and then price range. So I understand how it's kind of fallen out, and the Kickstarter hasn't delivered yet. So I can see how it falls from graces, for people as well. And it's randomized. It's very random. Once you get it, you're like, wait, all I'm doing is chucking dice, live or die, like that kind of thing. So it can be a surprising game, but for me, Oathsworn is going to be a prime example of a game that's going to go from 84 to like top 10.
Yeah, like I think that's going to be a lot. Oathsworn is people are only just playing it now,
right?
Yeah, and they have a whole new Kickstarter going.
Yeah, and a little bit like ISS Vanguard has come in at number 131. I thought Oathsworn would be higher because more people have got it, more people have been playing it,
right?
And the way that it allows you to play. Because one of the differences between Oathsworn and a lot of other solo games is in Oathsworn, you play 4 characters. You always play 4 characters. There is no, compared to say Gloomhaven, where you play 2 to 4 characters. Every single scenario in that game is designed for 4 characters. And if you're playing solo, you have to play 4 characters. But they've got these rules in there that allow you to play 3 of the characters as these cut down, easier to run versions. So you're not having to forehand the whole thing. Some people do if they really want to, but you can just play 1 character the proper way, or the main way, and then you play the other 3 with this sort of smaller version. So the way that they've done that is really cool, and I know quite a few people that are playing it solo.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I really like what I did to kind of vary it up, because I get bored with the same character in these endless campaign games.
Mhm.
I've been switching which one's my main character,
Right.
like each mission.
Yes.
So I'll be like the rogue for a few missions, then I'll be my archer. Like it's the same crew,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like I'm highlighting a different one each time.
Okay,
you
that
know?
works.
I thought
Yeah.
I'm working on a video for this between this and Gloomhaven. And one of the things that I think the game doesn't do well is like what the level up system is a good progression of the game, but it doesn't feel like this thematic thing of like, oh, my warrior's getting, better and all that stuff like that. It's kind of like a more paced. My person is like, it's paced out. And it's like, okay, now I get these cards. So now I feel thematic. Now I feel awesome. And now I feel, grown. But until then, it's like, oh, I get another chip. Oh, I get another thing. But
well, I think that's super similar to Gloomhaven.
but it works in that favor. Well, you always get cards though every time, and it adds to your character. It makes it gives you life every time. Versus like the cool part about that does work in its favor is the fact that you can switch characters. So it's like like you don't have to worry about 5 things to upkeep when you switch to characters. It actually is like give that guy an extra piece and now you're good to go. So they've kind of traded in accessibility versus then staring at 3 cards and going like, oh my God, how am I going to add this to my deck? Is this going to change the flow of my character? Like that kind of thing like that. But for me, with Gloomhaven, there's so much difference by taking that one card that you're like, I could change my whole deck's, strategy. And that in turn, since every character is thematic to whatever deck it is, it gives a little bit more theme to me. So I just thought that was really interesting. But Oathsworn is going to be higher, way higher. Right?
Yeah. Another game that I'm really happy to see on this list. This is the 51 to 100 list, and it is, I think, the one that's jumped the second most number of places, and that's Concordia.
Yes,
because
I was going to ask. I haven't played Solitaria yet.
It's great. Yeah, really, I love it. Yeah, really, really good solo mode. So to have Concordia on this list, I don't think there was an unofficial solo mode before. There may have been. Apologies if there was. Okay.
I think there was, but of course everybody was waiting for that access to that Concordia release. So I think there was. Somebody had kind of made up something that was pretty decent. It's the sign of the times, right? Great Western Trail 155. So it went up 155 because now it has an addition with the solo mode. And that also had a well-regarded. I believe that one had a well-regarded.
It was pretty popular.
Yeah, that one, like Brass would be another one. Like they had like a well-regarded solo mode, but this one, once it's official, boom, boom.
Well, hey, that happened for literally me for Undaunted.
There you go.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about it. Okay, so I'm gonna say, I mean, I really love Undaunted. I think it's a fantastic game. I'm assuming this is, I mean, as we talked about, Undaunted Normandy itself does not come with a solo mode in that box. You have to get the
I'm assuming it's the Undaunted reinforcements.
Yeah,
that works with North Africa and Normandy.
Of all the games associated with David Thompson that can be played solo, this is not the one that I would put at the top of the list at all.
I put Pavlov's House.
Yeah, same.
Well, I think it's telling, and I think they did a good job with Undaunted reinforcements. It's actually pretty similar to like my unofficial solo mode that I did first in a lot of ways.
The true standard, for goodness.
No, I'm not saying that. My mode is really weighty and takes a while. It's definitely like the kind of thing Paul would not want to play, based on what we said in the last episode. But yeah, I think David Digby, who was the lead designer on Reinforcements, and David Terzi, who helped out. I think they have a very different solo sensibility, for better or worse, than David Thompson does, and I tend to gravitate more toward the David Thompson school for most things, unless it's a Mind Clash, and then I really love David Terzi's stuff a lot of the time.
Can you play? Okay, can you take? I don't own Undaunted, and the reason why I don't is because I wanted to play it solo. So I need that.
So if you get Undaunted Normandy, my solo mode's still up on BGG. It was super popular, and I think it's still, some people still prefer it to Reinforcements, but clearly Reinforcements took all the air out of the room, as it should, because it's an official thing. But yes, my solo mode's only for Normandy. You got to print out 9 cards. To play the other one, you got to buy the Reinforcements expansion, and then it works for either Normandy or North Africa, or lets you even combine them some. So it kind of lets you do a bunch of stuff with it.
So it's the system for both of those, basically.
Correct. Although I've been talking to David some, he's saying Stalingrad, which is the next one coming for the system, is like by far the best in the system. I'm not sure where solo stands for it.
It's no solo mode.
No solo.
It's no solo mode.
I have Stalingrad. I've covered it on the channel. I've played it a few times. It is by far the best of the Undaunted series of games.
God, I'm saying a lot because Normandy was so good.
But this is wow. It's so good. You play scenario 1. And then at the end of scenario 1, you're like, okay, so because in this, whenever a card goes to the killed pile, it's not killed, it's wounded. And then at the end of the scenario, you go through your wounded pile and you shuffle them and you take out a couple and you go, those soldiers died.
Oh, shoot.
So they died from their wounds. So those cards go in that compartment, and they're gone. For everyone that died, you've got to take a random reserves card, and it's basically some guy with a shovel who's just turned up and gone, what do I do? What do I do? And it's a weaker version. And then at the end of each scenario, 2 of your soldiers upgrade. So you remove them and you get these random improvements. And it's like, oh, this one's better at this and this one's. And suddenly you then play scenario 2. It's like, well, it's, a lot of games when you add a campaign element onto them suddenly go a lot better. And Undaunted Stalingrad adds this, this campaign system. It's not legacy. You are not destroying anything. You're not stickering. You're not writing on anything. It's all just moving cards from one compartment to another. Suddenly the game, which was, I'm a fan of the Undaunted series, suddenly playing Stalingrad was like, wow, this is really good. So anyway,
I mean, Jeremy, I think you're a fan of the XCOM video games too, right? Anything that's like, here's your squads, some of them get better and your best people can die. Like the second you say that, like even ISS Vanguard had a little bit of that. Victorum had a little bit of that. Like I'm like, give me more.
Yeah, somebody compared ISS Vanguard to XCOM a week ago, I think. And I went, no, it's completely wrong. And then I went, oh no, wait a minute. Yes.
Because was that me?
No. Because XCOM is 2 games in one. You've got the tactical.
Oh, sure.
But right. But then whatever happens at the base, and they went, that's like ISS Vanguard, and I went, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So the tech trees, the managing your crew, all that kind of stuff.
When I hear that, and then I hear like it's like Mass Effect 2, like ISS Vanguard. So it sounds like next level stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, the big thing
time out for that.
The big thing, Jeremy, will be how much you like the planets, because I like them, but some people don't.
Yeah.
And like that's not awesome tactical combat like XCOM. That's not freewheeling, first-person shooter like Mass Effect. That's its own thing, and I think it's really fun. But just because you love the base side doesn't mean you'll definitely love ISS. You might.
But at least the rulebook will be good, so you should be all right learning it.
Also, the one game that seems to be losing steam, but it's still a good one to suggest, and I'm looking for ones that are a little bit on the cheaper side, and it's probably the cheapest one in this one here, and that's what was it I'm looking at? What was I looking for? Marquee. I mean,
Marquee. Yes, and Black Sonata.
And right next to it, losing steam a little bit, is One Deck Dungeon.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that One Deck Dungeon, really good. Really good dice game. And the cool part about this one is that if you get into it, you have a lot of extra content, different themes that you can go into. Because One Deck Galaxy, is that out yet? Like officially?
I think it's finally close. I think it's shipping now.
Yeah,
or close to shipping.
Like get your hands on one of those that kind of suits you, and give it a go. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm like, oh, that's a little bit like and the Orchards in there. Another really good game.
Like I actually want to point out all of those little side room games are actually in this segment of the list.
Yeah.
You've got McKee, which is a lovely little quick worker placement. You've got Orchard. Grove was further down, but Orchard's the first of the series. Like a nice little, it's like 18 cards. You only play like 9 at a time. Yeah. Super quick little scoring thing. I really like it. And then Black Sonata is still on here, which is solo hidden movement.
So Marquee's gone up 60 places from last year.
That's probably the new, because they had like an official nicer edition, didn't they?
Nicer edition that was newer this year that got the backers. Hey, Search for Planet X.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to see that. Yeah. That's a good game.
So this game is going to continue to rise because it's now way more in print.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It is. That game suffered so much from the pandemic because it came out like right when it started. Like,
I don't even know.
It would have been the Gen Con game. Like it would have been the one that were like, oh my God, Search for Planet X. and it didn't get that. And most people didn't know about it, but it sold out of its print run. And even when the new print run came out, it just didn't have like the wide buzz. But everybody who played it loves it. I mean, it's a really good game. There's actually a new sequel version with animals or something like that. And I just hope people really adore it, because it's a really good game to play by yourself. It doesn't matter what player count you play it at, honestly, because it's really fun. It's a really fun exercise, let's just say. Exercise. Nice. So in deduction, another app-driven game though too. So if you're not really into apps, you're definitely not going to be something that's up to, because it is relying on that. Man,
well, that's one of those ones, like some people say, like you could look at you could do Journeys of Middle Earth without the app. It would be cumbersome. You'd have all these books and things and such.
Could you?
But you could.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you could. It would just be a little bit frustrating. But Search for Planet X is one of those games that I think even the app deniers tend to maybe not mind so much. There's literally like no way to do that. Like this, simultaneous. Well, maybe solo you could, but like the simultaneous competitive kind of like Clue style game, like guessing all these things. It's genius. I think it's great how they did it.
Hey, while we're at it, let's just add in this thing. You can play Oathsworn without the app. Don't you dare. Okay.
Oh, that narration is so good.
is basically due to the narration being brilliant.
Yeah, the narration is too good.
Well,
you've not heard me, Jeremy. You've not heard me doing my narration.
No, I'm serious. Like it's way too good. I mean, it's just too much. I also do not play the short version of the scenarios. You're gonna have completely different experiences.
I've done both based on who I'm playing with, and it's been fine.
I've done both. Like I did both, so I could get a round idea of like what it felt like, and it's amazing that the wide difference of what's going on by the story they're telling you. Like, oh, I thought they would give you the full experience. Like, okay, you just do the dice rolls. No. It's a very shortened experience of like what happened here. It's like, hey, do 3 dice checks. Okay, hit miss. All right, get these 2 cards. Now you're fighting, which is fine. Like if you want to get through just to the battles, but man, you are missing out on some very big story elements if you do, and they are fun. They're fun and engaging. So yeah, that game it is definitely going to fly up this chart.
Well, going back to Great Western Trail is currently 58th on the list, up 155 places.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how high is that? I'm really curious to see what this list is going to be like next year for all of these ones. And we touched on this, but I think, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, the Great Western Trail, the 2nd edition that's come out, which has the solo mode included in it, the solo mode that is included in it was the unofficial fan-made one that was so good, they just went, well, we'll just use that because it's really good. So I don't think there was any changes to it. And somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember asking.
Man.
That's the same. Root is the same thing. We should say the Root came from a fan-made. What they call it? Well, I guess they made an official solo mode in the first expansion that I understand is widely panned and broken. Right. And then, to be fair, the fan worked with what they had in the official solo mode, but just made it like a billion times better and worked for every faction instead of just the cats. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's definitely cool when that happens.
And just going back again to, there's one thing that I suddenly remembered that I wanted to say about the Concordia solo mode. The reason why Concordia Solitaris is so good is you can play it with any map and any expansion in any combination. It isn't just, here's a solo mode, but it's only for the base game. It's like, no. This solo mode will do you for whatever flavor or version of Concordia you want to play. It completely goes on to any with them. And it's clean, it's flip a card, tiny little bit of AI, enough that I can manage it without my head exploding. And it was really good. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta get this now because I love to play it multiplayer a lot. So there's another trend in this part of the list that I want to mention, especially because we may not be mentioning too much of it anymore in the future. So these modular deck games, 2 of which are from the Saddlers. So we've got Street Masters in this segment of the list. We've also got lower down Alter Quest, and then of course, kind of in the middle, Sentinels in the Multiverse, which is like the older school, like let's put a bunch of decks together game. So they're all kind of still hanging in. But the Saddlers are, Brady is no longer designing games. He's gonna go write novels, and I completely support his creative journey. But also, like, you know, they made some really cool games and had some cool ideas.
Are these the two designers that did Warhammer Adventure Quest, which then became Heroes of Terranov? Yeah, amazing game. I saw that on the list way lower down, but that's a great game.
What minds, right? What talent you have. Like I can shift from game design to like, I'm just writing novels, baby. Like,
yeah,
what talent. I love when people have this, like especially in the industry, but it's like it takes a lot to design a game. It's not just, you know, you know, I'm trying it, and it's just like, just to even take an idea and put it down on paper and cut out cards, that's a lot. But to have these games like the Sattlers have done, which are not small, you know, like they're not small, they require a lot of thought process, and then to take that talent and turn it into something that's deep in lore is quite a feat. So I'm really excited about their journey.
Yeah, for sure.
His journey with that as well. That's, you know, I just want to give a shout out to that because here's a big one.
Also, Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Yes, I've never played that. So
what, Jeremy?
No,
neither have I.
I haven't played that or Alter Quest. I played Street Master. Street Master is one of my favorite solo games at one time, but I wanted to play Alter Quest because it's basically, isn't it like Street Masters but just in a fantasy universe? I
mean, there's a lot of differences, but yeah, a lot of similarities.
Right. I mean, a lot of differences that would be based on fantasy, right?
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, Street Masters is a straight up kill the boss. Like, they're on the board from the beginning. Alter Quest, the boss comes out later. Alter Quest has this whole like exploring room mechanic. Street Masters, you just have like this one set board. Everything's right there in the beginning. They're both good. Neither's like a top game for me. Sentinels is a top game for me, especially the new definitive edition. Yeah, so I'd rather play Sentinels, and some of it is streamlining. Like, I'd rather play Sentinels than Street Masters, Alter Quest, all of those, because it's just cards, but it still achieves, I think, as much theme and even more like combos and interactions. And then another one that's not like necessarily said as a MDS, like modular deck system game, but it kind of is Cthulhath May Die. You can swap out different episodes, swap out different Elder Ones, swap out different heroes. But they did it in a way that's a lot more streamlined, but still gets a lot of theme across than like Street Masters did. Because Street Masters, you got a bunch of different decks and a lot of like effects just hang out, and you got to keep on remembering to check them for better or worse. Death May Die, you shove those, you know, the Elder One and the episode cards together. So you're just drawing a single card each turn. Those cards don't stay in play. They do something and they're gone. I don't know. It's at least for me, like when I'm trying to play a quick, like kind of fun dice chucking game, I'd probably gravitate toward Death May Die before any of them, honestly.
Playtime is on point. I mean, we're talking like 70, when it's like, when people say like 75 to 90, like this is right in there.
Yeah.
It's not long. If you have season 1 and 2, you have so many characters to choose from. So many.
When we just did a play with the new expansion stuff they have for our Extra Life stream yesterday.
Yeah.
Hey, donate to children's hospitals, everybody.
There you go.
But so we played with the relics, which power you up more, and the like extra monsters. The extra monsters were fine. The relics are freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like I want to play with those every game now. It made your character more unique. It gave you more like fun things to play around with. It's going to make each game feel more different. I was really into those.
That's the thing. It's like the game already has so much baked into it, just by the characters. Like the characters have different styles, they have their different things, but of course it's just the thematics of how they. But you really get a chance to like feel this epicness rise in the game. Like so for example, like Atlantis Rising always has that final push, that final tension. Cthulhu definitely die. You can make it happen early. You can just go crazy. You can just go mad. You're like, I'm going in, and that sets a precedent for like, dude, you are walking the line right now. But at the same time, you may want to because your character does that, and it's like that right there, that tension there, and people can die right away, and that's fine because the game is not that long, and there's a reason to stay in it, and it's a very unique game that way. But at the same time, it's not. It's just a very high, intense experience with quick fails, and intense wins. And I love that about that game. A lot of emotion, very swingy, but swingy in a thematic way. Like, swingy. it's very swingy. You know, you never know what will happen when you open that door or when you have certain tasks, and it's not just beat the boss. You know, it doesn't feel like just beat the boss. You got to do certain things teamwork wise. So
yeah. It's very sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Okay, so a much more simple game, like one of the elder gods of solo gaming is kind of on our slow downward run, which is Onirim. That was number 9 a matter of years ago.
Wow.
It used to be a steady favored top 10 solo game.
Amongst
and it's amazing to see, like, I'm glad that it's still there. I also do like, I wanted to pose the question to y'all, since we play a lot of solo games. Is solo gaming just kind of leaving these sorts of games behind? Is Onirim just old and outdated now, or whence this fall from grace?
So I probably do less solo gaming than out of the 4 of us. I probably do the less solo gaming because I do a lot of multiplayer gaming. But my thinking is there's nothing wrong with Onirim. Yes, it's a few years old, but we're getting all of these other games, and other games which are probably more known for being multiplayer are having solo modes added to, like the Great Western Trails, like the Concordias and things like this. And that is making solo gaming is growing, which is amazing. And solo gaming is getting more and more popular. And it's nice that we're having solo modes added to already existing great games. But that does mean that some other games, which are, predominantly solo games, are kind of dropping down a little bit.
Just
I would argue
like that. Yeah,
I would argue a different point. I think like the button shy games that have done super well, like even this year, Final Girl having like a meteoric rise, making tons of money on Kickstarter. I think especially with COVID, I think there was a huge like blossom of love for even games that are solo only. Because I hear you, Paul, and I think sometimes it's a tougher pill to swallow to buy a game that's solo only over one that's like, I can play this with my friends and play it solo. Better value, I totally see that. But I think solo only is doing very well. Yeah, I just think Onirim, I bet a lot of people, even when it was like as high as it was, were playing it on the app and not the actual game. Right. You know what I mean? And I just think it's, even for me, I'd rather play some of the other Oniverse games like Nautilian or Arion instead of Onirim at this point. So I just think a lot of people move on. And especially like a quick game, like I have a whole shelf of little games like this. I think Onirim's even on it. And I just don't look at it that often because it's just like kind of sitting there, So unless it's a new like little quick game, sometimes I just won't pull it out. Although I do have Rove on my bedside table right now, and I played it the last like 3 nights in a row, just like busted out a 10-minute game before I went to bed. Yeah, so I think solo only is still alive. I just think Onirim's, it's not getting the attention it once did.
I just think there's more solo only games.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
That's another thing. There's just more solo only games, and people are preferring those on the other. Like there's more roll and write games than ever that can be played solo. So like if you just prefer those, you may prefer something that's newer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like just as a whole, like if you told me it's between Onirim and Resist, like I might play Resist more now. It's newer and it's solo only, and
it's
like just
better.
Games, like
I think Resist is better than Onirim. But Onirim is more mindless. I will give it, like Onirim's better mindless. For like a just.
Yeah.
But like we just talked about this beforehand, like you just have, or we were talking about last episode, there's just a whole bunch of, button shy games that could move all of these around. But here's a overarching thing. I haven't looked at the last 50. I just kind of doing it as we go along, but the weight of a game can shift a lot of things, because now, like Paul said, there's more of these. There's also Euros that are played multiplayer with the solo mode, and I've found that more hobbyist gamers, they're going to be a little bit further into the hobby. They're going to start picking those games that are bigger presentation, bigger, like bigger Euros that have solo modes, because they want this crunchier thing, and they may not be looking for portable, small as much as well. So there's like 2 factors working against a game like that. This just shows you the staying power. This shows you more of the staying power, more so than like the slow progression. I'm like even Pandemic, I'm like that is staying power. That is flat out staying power. So that just goes to show you how strong people think about these games. Like that's staying power to me. Like both those games is like a testament to how great they are for people,
The fact that it's dropped a few places, it's still in the top 100, and it's still higher than loads of other great games that we've spoken about.
Yep. And I do wonder if it's emotional attachment versus whether it's still actually that good. But time will tell, and the people's choice will tell.
True.
So, speaking of moving on to bigger things, it's time to wrap this so we can talk about the top 50. But does anybody have any final thoughts before we break? And there will be another video soon, everyone.
Yeah, let me jump in. I think nobody talked about one of my favorite games, and I'm surprised it's as high as it is. It's 69, which is a Bullet. From level 99. I adore that game, but I still kind of feel like I'm like one of the only champions of it, but apparently I'm wrong, maybe.
Because that game.
Yeah, I've not played it, I've not heard of it, but it's 69 on the list, so yeah, it must be getting quite a few votes.
Paul, you got to play it. You do have to play that game.
Okay.
I
absolutely love that game.
Mike, we still need to play it. I want to.
Yeah,
let's get on and play it soon.
I would literally after this recording we can play, and I'd be happy. And something else I was just looking at because I totally forgot about, but we haven't mentioned it at all. But it is an interesting one. So for you all, I don't know if Kevin puts out like the detailed things, but all four of us can see them. It's like for you, if you're in the thing, it's like the fifth column over is average vote. That's very interesting to look at because the lower number means fewer people ranked it, but they ranked it higher. Right. Higher numbers mean it was more widely placed, but with a lower rank. So for example, Midara's 77, that's a 5.8. Right. Wow. Not that many people have it. It's so huge and expensive, but it's incredibly highly ranked by those who do. Oathsworn's the exact same way. Where'd it go? Yeah. Oathsworn is 5.2. So that's the lowest average vote in this section of the list, which means the fewest people have it. But that speaks to us thinking it's gonna rocket up the charts because if more people own it and it keeps like that kind of ranking. Whereas something that's really low, Jeremy, the one you mentioned, One Deck Dungeon, a ton of people rated it, but they only rated it on average 12.8 out of 20. Yeah. So they're not loving it. Like a lot of people still like it enough, and Agricola was the same. Agricola is 12.7. So like it's interesting to look at like the higher and lower rankings.
Yeah.
One thing that we didn't talk about, Star Wars Outer Rim is on their 70th on the list, but it's up 38 places. Now, Star Wars Outer Rim came out, I don't know, X number of years ago, and it had a solo mode included in it, which I thought was quite good. But then when the expansion finally came out, Unfinished Business, aptly named expansion. That expansion came out last year with a tweaked solo mode. It wasn't a completely different solo mode. It was just tweaked a little bit, but it was a better solo mode. And I think that's why, I mean, I enjoyed the original solo mode. I enjoyed it more with the new solo mode. But yeah, I love Star Wars Outer Rim as a game and I love it as a solo game. So yeah, glad to see that on there. In 38 places it's rose, and then it's currently at 70. So that might break into the top 50 next year.
Final thought. Love to see a lot of these. Love to see a lot of these staples. These are staples, and it also shows you like, hey, this designer, especially Uwe Rosenberg, definitely, just shows you like that's a core favorite amongst people, and they probably will have more stuff and higher on the list. Just kind of pay attention to that designer specifically if you're looking for a nice little list of something to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's interesting because Uwe does a lot of games with Lookout Games, and Lookout Games have a kind of a company policy that all of their games have solo modes. Okay. Therefore, all of Uwe games that come out from Lookout Games have a solo mode included. And there's a lot of people that like a lot of his games. I like pretty much all of his games. And I've liked all of the solo modes that I've tried. So for me, if I was voting on this list, I would be voting for all of those games as well, roughly as to where they are in the list. So yeah.
Interesting. Pick your Uwe. And so yeah, and then I'll just close off with the same thought I always do, but I think it's important, right? Like this list is a celebration of how many options we have and how beautiful our branch of the hobby really is. And it just brings me a lot of joy. So I hope it brings everybody else a lot of joy too. But for now, we will be back in a few days once Kevin Erskine. Also, I want to thank Kevin Erskine again. Dude, we love you. You put together an amazing spreadsheet. This is a labor of love. And labor of love. I'm feeling the warmth here. But we'll be back with commentary on the tops once those run over the next few days. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Comment, ask questions, have opinions politely, but we like them. And most of all, happy gaming.
See you later.